Walter collapsed on his porch, clutching an old photo of his son, Ben, missing for 20 years, when the raven returned. Its wings, soaked by the storm, fluttered as it landed with a message, "I never stopped loving you." But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. That morning, the wind bit colder than usual, tugging at Walter's flannel as he eased into his porch chair, cane tapping rhythmically against the planks. The town was still, just a few scattered cars down Main Street, their exhaust turning to mist in the thin morning air. But in Walter's chest, something stirred, some nervous animal that hadn't twitched in decades. He told himself he wasn't hoping, but his hands trembled in his lap. And then he heard it, the soft, leathery flutter of wings, followed by a scrape of claws on metal. The raven had come. Its feathers gleamed like wet ink in the gray morning light. It cocked its head, black eyes glinting like it knew him. Walter swallowed hard as he leaned forward and unfastened the small parchment from its leg. His fingers, stiff with arthritis, fumbled with the knot. For a moment, he hesitated before opening it, afraid of what might or might not be inside. The note read, "The blueberry pancakes. You always burned them. I never said anything." Walter let out a sound somewhere between a chuckle and a sob. He pressed the paper to his chest, the weight of 2 decades hitting all at once. That detail. It was absurd, small, a trivial grievance a son might harbor and never speak aloud. But that's what made it so real. No prankster would know that. No cruel kid could fake the ache that bloomed in Walter's ribs now. His memory snapped back like a whip. Ben, maybe 12, sitting at their pinewood kitchen table, cheeks stuffed with charred, syrup-drenched pancakes, never once complaining, even after Walter scorched 3 batches in a row, even after his wife died and Walter lost the ability to focus on anything but keeping busy. Why would Ben bring that up now? He folded the note carefully, sliding it into the tin box he'd begun keeping beside his chair. A dozen other notes lay inside, fragments of a relationship that had slipped through his fingers like water. But today it felt different, more pointed. A message meant not just to remember, but to heal. Walter stared at the raven, eyes misting over. "Are you real?" he asked softly. The bird blinked. "Are you sending these, or is he—" He couldn't finish the sentence. The raven ruffled its feathers, gave a low croak, and then leapt into the sky. Walter stayed outside long after it was gone, note clenched in hand, heart stitched with something fragile, like the first hint of spring beneath a long, bitter winter. The hospital room reeked of antiseptic and fluorescent sterility, a place scrubbed so clean it erased the very notion of comfort. Walter lay still beneath a threadbare blanket, skin paper-thin and grayed, like parchment left too long in the sun. The machines hummed gently, impersonally, the only signs that time hadn't stopped altogether. Outside the window, clouds gathered low and heavy, as if the sky itself sagged under the same weight that bent Walter's spine and hollowed his gaze. He didn't speak much now, just blinked, slow and listless, staring toward nothing. Not the television, not the clock, not the young nurse with kind eyes. It was the window he watched, always the window, as if the raven might return through it, as if something might yet come. But it never did. 3 days without a note. 3 sunrises and 3 dusks passed in full silence. For a man who hadn't spoken to another soul for years before the raven came, that silence should have been familiar. But now it roared, deafening, crushing. He had dared to hope, and now he was paying for it. In a moment of blurred panic on the 3rd day, he'd tried to stand, convinced he heard the soft clatter of claws on porch railing. But there had been nothing, just the echo of his own desperation, rebounding until his knees buckled and the porch blurred into a cold, distant sky. Tyler had found him there, collapsed and fragile, a weathered photo of Ben clutched like a talisman in his spotted hands. It was creased and nearly torn, edges frayed where fingertips had worried it too many times. Ben, at 17, grinning, alive, eyes still full of fire before storms swallowed him whole. Now, Walter's lips moved slowly in the dim room, forming words no one could quite hear. Tyler leaned in. "What is it?" "I never said I was sorry." The whisper rasped like a knife across dry bark. The truth of it lay thick in the air, not the dehydration, not the fainting, but the absence, the ripping void where the raven had been, where forgiveness had hovered, just out of reach. It wasn't just about the bird, it was about what it had brought, the suggestion that love, once lost, might still be heard, that broken things could speak again. And now that voice was gone. Walter turned his head away from the window for the first time. The sky had darkened, the storm was coming, but no wings cut through it, just rain. The rain came down in sheets, drumming on the tin roof like the heartbeat of something ancient and relentless. Ash Hollow was swallowed by fog and water, the sky a bruise above the trees. Thunder rolled low, like a growl from the throat of the earth itself. Walter stood in the storm, unprotected, cane forgotten behind him, face lifted as if searching the clouds for a sign he didn't quite believe he deserved to see. Then, there it was, a black blur against the gray, wings flapping erratically, feathers matted with rain. The raven landed on the porch rail with a shaky, uncertain grip, talons clicking against rusted metal. It looked smaller now, older, vulnerable in a way Walter had never imagined a creature like that could be. Its head dipped once, solemnly, like it understood the weight of its return. Walter's breath caught. The sob rose from somewhere so deep it felt prehistoric. A sound not just of grief, but of release. He fell to his knees before the bird, fingers trembling as he reached for its leg. The string was knotted, wet through, but intact. He untied it slowly, reverently, as if it might disintegrate at his touch. The paper was soaked, but still legible. The ink had bled, but the hand, Ben's hand, was unmistakable, jagged, urgent, painfully familiar. "Dad, if you're reading this, then my plan worked." Walter read it aloud in a whisper, the storm softening around him as the words carved open the years. Ben had written these before he vanished, not just messages, but a map through Walter's grief, a bridge back to the light. "I asked a friend, Clara, to find a raven, train it, and deliver these messages one day when you might need them." Walter's voice cracked on the word friend. This Clara, whoever she was, had carried out a promise no one else even knew existed. Quietly, faithfully, for years, for him. The letter ended simply, "I never stopped loving you. Please forgive me." Walter folded the note with careful hands and held it to his chest. The rain soaked through his shirt, but he didn't move. He couldn't. Something had broken open in him, not like glass shattering, but like a frozen river finally cracking in spring. Behind him, Tyler stepped onto the porch, his own clothes plastered to his skin. He knelt beside the old man without a word, letting the silence speak for them both. When he finally did speak, it was barely above the sound of the rain. "He never gave up on you, Walt." And in that moment, for the first time in 2 decades, Walter believed it. The sun had barely risen, casting the first fragile rays of light across the dampened porch, when the raven appeared again, silent, steady, unannounced. It landed with grace, as if the world had shifted its weight just enough to make room for its return. Walter's fingers trembled as he reached for the note, the paper slick with dew and the weight of finality. It was the end of something, perhaps the end of everything that had been broken, cracked, or lost. The end of a search that had stretched years into the horizon of his soul. His hands, as old as the earth beneath him, struggled with the knot. His breath caught in his chest, each moment like a slow unraveling of a tension he hadn't realized had wound so tightly inside him. When he finally held the note, the ink was faint, but clear enough for him to make out the words. "Forgive yourself. I already have." Walter didn't cry, not at first, not in the way he thought he would or thought he had to. The tears, if they came, would be quiet. They would be held in the deep crevices of his heart, the ones that had been too afraid to open for so long. But for now it was just a smile, a broken, trembling smile that felt like it could lift mountains, a smile that lingered like the first breath of spring after an endless winter, unsure of its warmth but still strong enough to push through. He had waited for so long to hear these words, to believe in the possibility that the distance between them, father and son, could be bridged. He had wanted this so badly that in his mind he had made it impossible. But now the bridge was built. It was imperfect, as all bridges are. It was fragile, like old bones, yet it stood. He could feel it beneath his feet. The local paper ran the story. Its headline splashed across the front page with all the drama of a small town's biggest mystery finally solved. Mystery Raven and Letters Heal Decades-Old Wound. The people of Ash Hollow, a town that had long since written off Walter as a recluse, began to appear at his doorstep again, not out of pity, but out of curiosity and something gentler, more human. Tyler helped him plant a flower bed in Ben's memory, a patch of earth that would hold the life that had slipped away, the life that still somehow could bloom again. A local artist painted a mural of the raven in downtown Ash Hollow, its wings spread wide as if embracing the entire town. It was a tribute, but also a symbol, a reminder that healing wasn't linear. It came in waves. It came when you least expected it, with the quiet persistence of a bird who had no need to announce itself, only to be there when it mattered most. Walter kept every letter in a small wooden box by the window. It was simple, worn, the corners smoothed by years of careful handling. The box had a softness to it now, as if it too had been slowly mended. When people asked about the letters, Walter would smile, and in his voice, no longer a whisper of sorrow but a quiet strength, he'd say, "My son came back, in the only way he could." The raven, too, still came. No more messages, just the quiet visit. A reminder. And Walter, for the first time in his life, understood that love, broken, delayed, and imperfect, was never lost. It would always find its way home, even if it took a lifetime.